And the 30-minute break is over, but you're still with us on the second day of You Matter, inspiring a client-centered HIV response in the Philippines and Southeast Asia, brought to us by the International AIDS Society and Love Yourself Incorporated of the Philippines. I am still your host, Mela Habijan, your Miss Trans Global 2020. We are done with the first three sessions and we are about to embrace our fourth and final session. And it has the theme You Leverage on HIV Testing. And to officially begin our final session, may I call in once again Dr. Nitaya Panupak, the Executive Director of the Institute of HIV Research and Innovation in Thailand. Sawadee ka!
สวัสดีค่ะ and good afternoon everyone once again. Welcome really to our last session of this You Matter IS Educational Fund and Love Yourself Symposium. Since yesterday we have already covered two key topics, PrEP and PEP, and then stigma around HIV, and PrEP and U equals U. And today, just an hour ago, we have been covering the topic of HIV testing and treatment as prevention, including same-day ART. And now it's very, very exciting to hear about self-testing. And we will be hearing best practices and perspectives from three countries, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Vietnam. And before we start, it's my role to remind you of some housekeeping rule. You are all muted, so you cannot talk, but please send in your questions to us through the question box so that we can get prepared to get your questions answered during the Q&A and discussion session. And also, please continue to chit chat through the chat box because this is one of the chances that we can networking virtually during this COVID-19 time of the world. And after this symposium, this is the last session. So after this symposium, you will get an email asking you to give us some feedback for the symposium. And by completing that survey, you can request for a free 1-year IAS membership. And lastly, for those of you who would like to get the CPD unit accreditation, once after you complete these 4 sessions, then you will be instructed on how to claim your CPD accreditation. I think that's it for now. Back to you, Mela.
Hapon ka, Dr. Nitaya. You know what? I really would love that IAS free membership for a year. That would be awesome. So make sure that you attended the first 3 session and you're still with us during the 4th session. Muli, maraming salamat, Dr. Nitaya, for that welcoming remarks. And now, let's get the ball rolling with our first speaker. And he will be talking about the current situation of self-testing experience here in the Philippines. And what a way to be discussed this particular topic by no other than its program director, Love Yourself's very own director for operations and research. Let me pass the microphone to Mr. Danvic Rosadino.
Thank you so much, Mela, for... I think you can't see me now, but...
And Danvik will be with us in a short while. We are just dealing with some matters here in our studio. But again, let me remind you that this is our last session for our 2-day symposium. And it's very important that you have attended the first 3 and finally today's session. So now I think we are all set. Once again, this is Danvik Rosadino.
Thank you so much, Mela. I think you can see me now. So we will now be presenting our topic, which is the online self-testing experience of Love Yourself here in the Philippines. So what we did is we rolled out our project, which we call self-care, or our demonstration project of HIV self-testing in the Philippines. But before I give a context of what HIV self-testing is, I'll give you a brief background of what the HIV epidemic is in the Philippines. As of October 2020, we have experienced diagnosed cases of 81,169 Filipinos diagnosed with HIV in the Philippines. And before the COVID pandemic has hit the Philippines, there are 35 Filipinos per day who are diagnosed HIV per day, which in turn, when we experienced the pandemic here in the Philippines, it actually decreased to 21 cases per day. While it may seem to be a good thing, it is actually some factors, especially with the lockdowns that were imposed. Because of the limited mobility that was imposed in the Philippines, there was a decrease in HIV cases in the Philippines. In terms of performance of the UN-AIDS targets in the Philippines, in the former 1990 targets of the UN-AIDS, we are actually underdiagnosing people. Around 67% out of the 90% people living with HIV are diagnosed in the Philippines. With regards to treatment, it's way lower to 48%. But in terms of viral suppression, out of those who are actually qualified to receive viral load testing, 92% are virally suppressed, which testifies the fact that actually treatment works, especially if you take it every day. But we need to, of course, to increase the coverage for viral load testing in our country. But what we did, we need to first solve the problem where the diagnosis in the Philippines is actually underdiagnosed. We need to reach 90% or higher. But there are many barriers on why people don't want to go for HIV testing. Of course, the first one is there are misconceptions that downplays the need to get tested. Many clients are saying that they don't have that urgency specific to have an HIV test, or they may have no time to do it, and they don't make their sexual health and wellness a priority. Of course, in a conservative country like the Philippines, morality also places a factor on not to test people. Like some of the clients feel that they're morally superior to other gay men, or the idea of being seen to be tested for HIV may be embarrassing for them, or they may be tagged that their behavior is quote unquote immoral. Of course, there are other cases where they're worried about their confidentiality and privacy, where others will know that, if they test positive, they don't know what will be the reaction of their partners or their close circle of friends. So it diminishes the entire testing concept, especially if it's plagued with stigma and discrimination, which relates to the fear once they have a positive test result. Of course, they worry if the person who has HIV in his circle of friends, he might be the only one who has HIV, and they worry to lose support, whether it's from family, friends, or close ones, if they knew that they are HIV positive. And of course, there are other factors related to HIV testing services, like especially in the Philippines, where it is an archipelago country, the testing centers may be too far, especially if they are not located nearby to major cities in the Philippines, or sometimes the testing time for them is too long. So what we have seen in these situations is, where do we go next? In order to reach 90% or more, because we have now 95% targets, we need to reach those who are unreached. And what we have seen is that there is a need for people to be diagnosed. We need to expand the offering of self-testing service in other areas in the Philippines. So what we did is we followed WHO recommendations that self-testing is actually an additional option for people to access HIV testing. So what we did in the Philippines is we established self-care, which is exploring the acceptability and feasibility of HIV self-screening among men who have sex with men and transgender women in the Philippines. This demonstration study is conducted by LoveYourself and is partnered with the University of the Philippines National Institutes of Health in the University of the Philippines, Manila, the WHO Philippines and UNAIDS Philippines country offices, Filipina Shell Foundation, AIDS Healthcare Foundation, and ChemBio Diagnostic Systems. So we partnered in order to roll out this demonstration study in the Philippines, which has two phases. The first one is the formative assessment. The phase 1 actually serves as a foundation for how we will be implementing the phase 2 of the study. In the phase 1 of the study, we will be gathering insights and provide more evidence in order to support the feasibility and acceptability of how we will be rolling out phase 2. In phase 1, we will be conducting focus group discussions and surveys in order to see if self-testing, the concept of self-testing is acceptable to the community. After that, the foundation of the results of phase 1 will dictate phase 2, which is the demonstration study, which includes the procurement and online delivery of the HIV self-testing kit and will be offered based on the eligibility criteria. 18 to 49 years old, and if you are a MSM or transgender women, and if you are living or working in Metropolitan Manila. So what we have seen in our study in the phase 1 of the study is from 5 key concepts. The first one is in terms of knowledge, most of the participants are actually aware of the concept of HIV self-testing and are aware that it's already available in the Philippines. It is available, but it's actually available in the black market. What we mean to say by black market is that there are unregistered test kits that are actually offered in major online shopping platforms in the Philippines. In terms of acceptability, almost all participants are actually interested to use HIV self-testing. But what is unique in the Philippines is that most are actually prefer to use blood-drawn method in the Philippines. In terms of marketing and distribution, most prefer to order self-test kits online and want to have them delivered in their homes or in their preferred delivery address. And they are willing to pay not more than 500 pesos or around 10.33 US dollars. In terms of monitoring and tracking, most are likely to report their HIV test results, especially whatever the result is, whether they are non-reactive or reactive. And they are, for those who are HIV reactive, they are likely to confirm the test results within a week. It is important to note that in HIV self-testing, your diagnosis is not a definitive diagnosis and you need to access confirmatory testing for you to confirm your HIV test result. And in terms of support needed, of course, for those who are non-reactive, they prefer remote counseling for those who are non-reactive. And for those who are reactive, they actually, what they said is that they need on-site counseling, which testifies the fact that once you are not reactive, you need to go to a facility, either a health facility or a community center offering HIV testing services so that they will be confirming their status. And on-site counseling, of course, will be provided on-site. So what we did with the findings that we had in phase 1 is to dictate on how we will roll out phase 2, which is our demonstration study itself. We branded our self-testing experience self-care, which includes 4 major aspects: the use of virtual assistants, a discrete packaging, the use of online counseling, and providing a service which we call Access by LoveYourself. The first one is the use of virtual assistants. The use of virtual assistants, we created a service where we collaborated with our 2 self-care ambassadors, Miss Universe 2018 Catriona Gray and Paulo Gumabaw, a actor of Mga Batang Paws. We created this platform so that we will be able to assist clients to provide that assisted service in an unassisted HIV self-testing service. We created a platform where they can access questionnaires, collecting their delivery details, instructions on how to use the HIV testing kit, and to report the results, whether they're HIV non-reactive or HIV reactive. What we also learned in the phase 1 of our study is the clients want to have a discrete packaging on receiving their HIV self-testing kits. So what we have noted from phase 1 is they want to have discrete packaging, to not use the color red in any of the packaging and any of the materials, so that what we did is we placed these materials that you see on the screen in a plain white box without any logos and markings, and will be opened once they personally receive their self-testing kit. In terms of online counseling, once they report that they are non-reactive or reactive, LoveYourself volunteers are actually on standby in order to help them process the result that they have received or guide them with the next steps in order to manage their health and wellness better, whether they are HIV non-reactive or HIV reactive. Especially for those HIV reactive, to to link them to confirmatory testing. And for them to be linked to confirmatory testing, we established Access by Love Yourself. It is important to note when we started self-care, it, the enhanced community quarantine or the strictest lockdown was placed in the Philippines. So what we did is that we established an ambulatory service where we pick up our reactive clients from the residents, bring them to the nearest Love Yourself center, and once they have accessed their confirmatory testing, initial consultation, and started ART on the same day, we bring them back to their residence, and this will not, add a problem of limited mobility during the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's what we did with our self-care service. In terms of the results of the phase 2, what we have seen is there is a high demand for self-testing. An initial timeline for our demonstration study is actually 1 year. But since the imposition of enhanced community quarantine, that 1 year was compressed into just 1 month. And in that 1 month, there are 4,163 clients who expressed interest to have themselves tested for self-care, and 2,543 clients are actually qualified based on the inclusion criteria that I explained earlier. And basing on the inclusion criteria, we successfully delivered 1,690 clients with their self-testing kits. The 25% of this number were not successfully delivered because of the checkpoints and the localized lockdowns that were placed in Metro Manila during that time. Out of the 1,690 successfully delivered testing kits, 1,281 actually reported their HIV test results. And you can see the results at the bottom part of the screen. Out of the 1,281, 94 clients actually were validated to be reactive, which translates to 7 to 8% reactivity rate. And all of these clients were actually linked to 56 of them actually were linked to confirmatory testing and are already starting treatment. What we have learned in this demonstration project is we need not only our clients but everyone to be educated, to entertain, and be inspired. First, we need to educate our clients. Clients must be informed about the whole process on how they will use their self-testing service, provide multiple options for information access, whether they will be using the kits online or they will be using it offline. In terms of entertaining our target market, we need to use friendly tone and positive language on all the materials that we will be using and address our clients' practical and personal needs. And of course, in our campaigns, to inspire them to promote call to action messaging that will inspire them to manage their health and wellness, whether they are HIV negative or HIV positive. With that, I end my presentation, and if you have any questions, feel free to comment in the chat, in the comment box below. Maraming salamat po. Thank you very much from the Philippines.
Maraming salamat, Danvic, for sharing the Philippine experience on implementing self-care. Again, just to reiterate, if you have questions for Danvic, he is more than willing to answer those questions later during our panel discussion. But for now, we invite you to write them down on our chat box. Or at this point, let's move on to our next speaker who will be providing insights on online self-testing done in Malaysia. And to give this interesting talk, let's all welcome the project coordinator of Malaysian AIDS Council, Mr. Davendran Tharmalingam.
Good day, everybody. I'm Davendran Dharmalingam, short for Davin, and I'm the project coordinator from the Malaysian AIDS Council. And today I'll be presenting our first HIV self-testing program in Malaysia, namely the JOM test program. JOM, it means let's, like let's go in Malay, and test, well, it's everything for testing. So when you say JOM test, meaning in English, you can say it as let's go for testing, or let's test. And this is a short name for the Integrated HIV Self-Testing Service Delivery in Malaysia for Policy and Service Development. Now, I'm sure everybody will be thinking, why conducting the HIV self-testing study in Malaysia? Well, first of all, key population often face barriers in assessing prevention and treatment in Malaysia. Although HIV testing is provided for free, like at government and public clinics, community-friendly clinics, and so forth, but the uptake of the HIV testing is dismally low due to multi-level factors such as stigma and discrimination, criminalization, fear of disclosure of their sexual identity, lack of anonymity, and concern about the confidentiality of their tests. So therefore, in previous study in early 2019 reported more than 74% of Malaysian MSM expressed their intention to do the HIV self-testing in the next 6 months. They perceive HIV self-testing offers privacy and they could self-test alone or with someone they trust. Thus, the immediate introduction of the HIV self-testing would benefit these individuals. And there it is, the born and also the introduction of the first study to assess the integrated HIV self-testing service in Malaysia through an e-testing website. So as you can see, the self-testing website, also known as JomTest, it is a service user-centered platform which they can also directly link to care. So over here we have our partners. The JomTest program, it is conducted in Malaysia by the research team of the Center of Excellence for Research in AIDS, which is CHERIA, Yale University, coordinated by the team at Malaysian AIDS Council and also the Love Foundation from Chiang Mai. The Love Foundation from Chiang Mai are the web developers of the JomTest website. And here are the study objective. Firstly is to determine whether the availability of an online self-testing distribution service model among key population is feasible and acceptable in Malaysia. Secondly, it is also to explore the feasibility and success of the recruitment strategies for engaging infrequent and non-testers MSM, PWID, transgender women, sex workers, and also people who are engaged with sex workers. The next objective is to determine how people engage with the pre-test information and post-test information counseling provided within the service model. To evaluate the information and resources provided in the self-test kit, and lastly, to evaluate the feasibility of JomTest website in linking participants with reactive test results to confirmatory testing and peer support. And these are the three main mottos of the JomTest program. Firstly, we are fast, accurate, and confidentiality. I mean, in other words, we actually respect the confidentiality of each participant. So yeah, I mean, we can say fast is because they can actually get their result and join the program in 4 easy steps. And in terms of accuracy, because the test kits used here are WHO pre-qualified and also approved by the FDA. And for the confidentiality, we also respect the confidentiality of our participants' results, and we ensure that it is not being shared to anyone else, and it's kept within the team. And here we're actually introducing the JomTest website. This is actually the homepage, and we have actually successfully launched on 16 September. From the 28th September to the 30th, we did some dry run among our partner organizations of MAC, and as well as on the 6th November onwards, we went live to the public. And here are actually some pictures where we have done the JomTest launch day event, where we have done Mostly is conducted through online, where we did some Facebook live session and YouTube live session, where we have run several live talk show tapping into stigma and discrimination topic, the intake of PrEP and PAP, the benefit of self-testing, and so forth. And over here, we also have the list of test kits that is available in the website. Firstly is the Insti self-test kit, which is a finger prick, and followed by Aura Quick in-home HIV self-test kit, which is using the oral swab. Both informations is clearly provided in the website, where it is also downloadable and is available in 4 different languages in Malaysia. And here we are, the framework of the whole study. So firstly, it starts with the word of mouth, social media, then people just coming to the website. And over here, they register themselves, get a consent, and they have to take part to the pre-test survey before ordering the test kit. Once they receive the test kit, they will have to test themselves and upload the picture of their result into the website. So if they were to test non-reactive, they will lead to a post-test survey page and will also link them to a page where we recommend them preventive measures such as taking PrEP and also practice safe sex. Followed by, they will also get a reminder for retest 3 months after their last uploaded results. As for the reactive cases, they will also go through the post-test survey, and after that, they will actually link up to a page where they can actually link to care, meaning that we have a list of outreach workers and we have a list of a directory of community-friendly clinic, government clinics, and also government hospitals where they can actually get immediate care, where they can actually go for confirmatory testing and also start heart medication. And as a random, some participants who are tested reactive will be selected for the in-depth interview. So what do we get in the test kit? They can either choose to opt for the oral swab test kit or the finger prick test kit. They will receive a condom, some packets of lubricant, and also disposable packages. And besides that, they will also receive instruction of use for both test kits, and as well as an emergency contact number where they can actually reach out to. Over here, we have the page where they can actually link to care. So this will be available across the website. So the first button is Get Connected, is where they can find the directory of all active outreach workers and peers around Malaysia. The second button is Get Tested. This is where they can find the directory of community-friendly clinic and STI clinics, as well as hospitals. Thirdly, it is actually a direct link where to the My Prep Locator website. So this is a website where they can actually see where PrEP is actually available near them. And lastly, it is actually the Get in Touch page where they can directly email us, WhatsApp us, or can easily call us. And this is the user dashboard where participants can actually see and also track their progress, whether which stage they are in the program. And these are some of the giveaways that we give out to the participants. We give out t-shirts, those who have actually completed the website, the study cycle. And followed by, we also have social media posters where it will be published throughout the Max U equals to U social media pages and Malaysian AIDS Council social media pages, and also some other dating apps. And over here, we also can see updates from participants on social media website where they insist on posting that they're okay, to get themselves tested and they're happy with it. And you can see quite a number of posts by participants in social media page. And this is where the team dashboard, where we actually, the team of Joom Test, we will actually try to manage through the backend of the website. So over here, we can actually see the backend data on how many users we've got in within the day, and what are the things that we need to manage in terms of individual participants. And this is the individual participant page where we can actually manage them individually. It's like, for instance, if we were to contact them privately through WhatsApp, or maybe they have any other consent, we can actually update them everything here in the website. So we don't have a separate spreadsheet or any other Google sheet, to actually keep track on each participants, where we can do everything in one place, which is through the Joom Test website. So from here, we can also see the test results of each participants and update their tracking number, and as well as to view their overall progress if they were to face any sort of issues through the program. And that's it. Well, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Davin, for providing us a perspective on the online self-testing measures you are doing in Malaysia. I hope our listening participants right now can adapt your best practices and disseminate the same in their own communities. Again, to our forum participants, you may type in your questions, which Sir Davin would love to answer in a short while. But now, our last but definitely not the least, is the sharing of updates on self-testing being implemented in Vietnam. We have two women speakers for this segment. Women Power it is. Please welcome the Global Program Director of Primary Health Care Path in Vietnam, Kimberly Green, and the Senior Program Officer of USAID or Path Health Markets Path in Vietnam as well. We have Doa Hong An. Take it away, ladies.
Thank you for that fabulous introduction. Hong An and I are thrilled to be here to present on Vietnam's experience in HIV self-testing and evolution over time since 2015. Big thank you to the International AIDS Society and to the amazing work of LoveYourself for including us as part of this learning session. So as we, I'm just trying to click to the next slide here, there we go. Before we dive into Vietnam, I wanted to share that PATH works across a number of countries worldwide, and over the last couple of decades have been very much focused on self-testing options as part of self-care. And that's included HIV self-testing. And so that's enabled us to respond to the needs of different individuals in different locations in terms of what kind of HIV self-testing products they might need or want, and how they would be interested in them being delivered. And so that's included developing virtual online ordering platforms, also working together with private sector entities like pharmacies, and supporting peer-based social network distribution of self-test kits. And so then with the advent of COVID-19, the previous presenters also spoke to this. It's been such an important time to really accelerate the use of HIV self-testing and to further adapt how it gets offered so that individuals can access HIV testing safely and are able to remain connected into the services that they need, either HIV prevention or treatment. And so with this, we've learned from experiences in a number of geographies, in Ukraine, in DRC, in Vietnam, and in Kenya. And those experiences have been reflected in a guide on how to apply HIV self-testing during the COVID-19 pandemic. And if anyone's interested in this guide, I'm happy to share it with you. But it provides a lot of very practical tips on ways to use HIV self-testing safely. And was supported through the STAR initiative, which is financed through UNITAID. So now we'll turn to the experience of HIV self-testing in Vietnam. So Vietnam has a very dynamic epidemic, and over the last several years, there's been a significant shift with an increase in incidence among men who have sex with men, particularly young men who have sex with men, as well as transgender populations. And so with that, there's also been work to address the first 90, but there are still gaps. And with increased incidence among young men who have sex with men and transgender populations, there's been a need to repivot, to strategize about different HIV testing strategies outside of the more traditional approaches that were on offer up to 2014, which were primarily facility-based testing in the public sector. And so around 2015, the Ministry of Health adopted at that time the 90-90-90 targets, and we're very interested in looking at other testing modalities that would help to increase access and use of testing in the community. And so this then opened a journey around self-testing starting in 2015 and continuing to today, of looking at different steps of HIV self-testing, starting first with assessing preferences and willingness to pay among key populations, followed by launching a pilot and learning from it in 2016. And then 2017 and 18, really normalizing HIV self-testing through guidelines, through standard national trainings, scaling up access, and focusing on demand creation. And then in 2019, there was finally the first product that was registered for use in Vietnam, and followed by a second one. And then in 2020 and 2021, we saw a lot of adaptation in service delivery models for HIV self-testing to adapt to the needs of different key populations and also to the COVID-19 context. So I'll start first with the first part of this story or this journey, and then I'll hand over to Hong Eng. So starting first with phase one, laying the foundation, assessing demand, preferences, and willingness to pay. So we conducted a 6-province-wide assessment using respondent-driven sampling among female sex workers, people who inject drugs, and men who have sex with men, asking a number of different questions around HIV services and commodities, and included HIV self-testing. And at that time, HIV self-testing was not available in Vietnam, so these were theoretical questions that were asked, but we were interested in first of all, were key populations interested in HIV self-testing? And we found that the majority were. And so then we also asked about product preferences. Would you prefer an oral fluid test or a blood-based test? And what we found is that there was a mix. And so this told us that anything that happened moving forward would need to involve choice of both blood-based and oral fluid tests. And we also asked about willingness to pay, and we found the maximum price at that time among men who have sex with men was about $5.50, and was lower for sex workers and for people who inject drugs. That's actually increased over time, and I'm happy to share more in the Q&A on how that's changed. So we then went to phase two based on this information that self-testing was something of interest to key populations, and piloted the model across 5 provinces. And so we trained community-based organizations across different geographies, and started in May 2016. And so we offered a choice of OraQuick, and at the time there was no blood-based HIV self-test available. So we had to be creative, and we used what was available to us at that time, which was a layer determine, and developed tutorials and training and instructions around how to use both of those 2 tests. And then we embedded an evaluation to assess acceptability, feasibility, and linkages into services. So as part of this pilot, the Ministry of Health was very interested in it, and they joined publicly with the US ambassador and his husband to publicly self-test. This created an amazing boost in terms of awareness and interest in self-testing across the country. And so linked with this, we also engaged in quite a lot of demand creation, very similar to what you've seen through the presentation for the Philippines and Malaysia. So a lot of engagement online, face-to-face, through events. And so now I'm just going to share some of the data. There's quite a lot of findings from this first study, but mainly the key takeaway is that people really preferred HIV self-testing because of the privacy and confidentiality that it offered. This was the most critical piece about HIV self-testing. And this respondent from Ho Chi Minh City said, I like the convenience of self-testing and that it's completely confidential. I can know my status faster. And then we also looked at what percentage of self-testers were first-time self-testers. And so you can see that the overall number of those opting in for self-testing was a lot higher among men who have sex with men, lower among other populations. But overall, new testers represented 55% of the total testers, which is really high. In other routine testing in Vietnam, it's a lot lower, the representation of new testers. And then we also looked at the cascade. We could see from this pilot a very strong cascade of confirmation and enrollment in treatment. And so now I'm going to turn over to Hong Ang, who's going to lead us through national scale-up of HIV self-testing.
Thank you so much, Kim. Now I would like to continue with moving on to the phase 3, which is the national scale-up of HIV self-testing. So with the next timeline, where you can see that HIV self-testing was approved in the National HIV Community Testing Guidelines in 2018, and then followed by approvals for the sales and distribution of HIV self-test kits by a range of stakeholders, and then the increasing rollout of HIV self-testing activities through the PEPFAR and the Global Fund programs. With the next data chart, you can see that there's a cumulative number of HIV testing offered through the USAID Path Healthy Markets project, and with over 15,000 people opting for HIV self-testing. And a note to this number is that we experienced some significant challenges with HIV self-test kit supplies at certain points throughout our 4 years of implementation. The pie chart you can see that there's cumulative HIV self-testing used by key population and mostly among MSM, which represents the prevalence, but also the geographic focus of our work over time. So now entering phase 4, where we supported HIV self-test performance assessment and product registration. To enable a more sustainable access to HIV self-testing at Path through the Healthy Markets project, we led a couple of performance studies among the 4 HIV self with one more under the way. And importantly, we have been supporting HIV self-test product registration in Vietnam. And 2 have been successfully licensed for commercial sale, that are the INSTI self-test and the Mylan product. Now, with the COVID-19 situation emerging from last year, we started a new phase, which is phase number 5, where different HIV self-test distribution models have been adapted in response to the environment. Here is an illustration of the online ecosystem used for HIV self-testing that involves an online risk assessment and service booking apps, online promotion through the hookup apps like Bloody and Grindr. We also worked with the online peer influencers and personalities like the former MTV VJ in Vietnam, who promote HIV self-testing to their network. We also have a Q&A chatbot embedded in a Facebook page dedicated specifically for MSM, currently with more than 200,000 followers, and an HIV and COVID-19 hotline that was stood up in April last year, led by the community, where individuals can call in and ask about HIV self-testing or anything that they wanted to know related to HIV. Beside the HIV self-testing online and the delivery channel, on the next slide, you can see that we also employ, would you mind advancing to the next slide, please? I don't see it changing. Okay, here it is. Thank you. So we also apply other differentiated models of distribution to put in place, such as the HIV self-test kit delivered through key population CBOs and social enterprises, the private clinics and pharmacies, or secondary distribution through the index client testing or the social network testing approaches. The next slide presents you with a flow where you can see how the online platform is utilized to ensure continued access of HIV self-testing in Vietnam. Let's wait a few seconds for the slide to come up. So basically what the flows is illustrating is that if a client feels that they are at risk and want to look for HIV testing service, they have the option of going online, look for the information and complete a simple risk assessment that allows them to self-assess and identify if they actually need an HIV. Step 2 is then to make an order by filling out the delivery request. The self-test kit is then delivered to clients within 48 hours, and the client is kindly asked to confirm their receipt via an SMS message. And the final step is for the client to perform the test themselves with the support of the instruction for use that is included in the package or through an online video. Then he or she is encouraged to share feedback on the testing experience, the testing results to the distributor within 7 days. And if the clients do not actively do so, the distributor will call the client to follow up. And here is some further data from the online channel distribution of HIV self-test kit to the MS over the period of 1 year, from April last year to this year. So just those who screened for their risk opted for an HIV self-test kit, and most of them were young and MSM. 60% of the respondents self-assessed of being at high risk for HIV, and 47% reported condomless anal sex at the last sex. Another interesting figure is that 52% of them reported never tested for HIV before, and this is a similar finding to our first pilot in 2016. However, we do realize that the new testing rate tends to be lower for other testing models at about 35%. And nearly 40% of the respondents had never heard of PrEP, and only 6.5% of them were on PrEP. With the next slide, you can see that in a HIV self-test, nearly 500 individuals also booked for an appointment for PrEP, and 2/3 of clients had the test sent to them by post or Grab Express, and actually pick up the test themselves at a CBO office. The following graph represents HIV self-testing distribution overall, just before and during the pandemic, and you see a strong increase in the use of HIV self-testing during COVID-19 period. And since there were many new testers, we saw that 62% of them opt for assisted self-testing overall. And we've consistently found that a blend of HIV self-testing reach and promotion activities are important, combining online with CBO and face-to-face peer engagement. And we realized that pharmacies have also become an essential partner in HIV self-testing distribution during COVID-19, with distribution and sales currently occurring in 67 pharmacies, social enterprises and clinics, and e-commerce platforms throughout Vietnam. In addition to that, during the lockdowns period that we are in right now in Vietnam, we've offered home delivery of HIV self-care package that include medical masks, a HIV self-test kit with the instruction for use, condoms and lubricant package, the PrEP leaflets that has information on both daily event-driven PrEP, and a t-shirt or a tote bag. And so at 570 packs distributed to the key populations. So, in summary, from our HIV self-testing journey in Vietnam over the last 6 years, we that HIV self-testing among key population is highly acceptable. It's preferred and is used by those that are new HIV testers, resulted in high ART uptake. It is also actually a portal to PrEP service and is key to maintaining HIV testing access and linkage to ART and PrEP during the COVID-19 period. And lastly, we believe that this provides the foundation for integrating and launching other self-test products like that for HCV and COVID-19 testing. So with this last slide, we'd like to express our gratitude to the Vietnam Ministry of Health and the Authority for AIDS Control and Administration for their vision and leadership in the HIV self-test from the start. And to our inspiring key CBOs and clinics, social enterprises colleagues, to our USAID Vietnam for their wonderful support, as well as to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Wits University, and Azinsha, who has been collaborating with us on a lot of our studies, our WHO and PATH colleagues for their partnership in making HIV self-testing a reality in Vietnam. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kimberly and Hong, for enlightening us with your current situation there in Vietnam. These are crucial information so that we can further the conversation on self-testing. So now it's about time for us to have this panel and ask them with your questions. So let me call on Danvik and Davin, and let's begin with our Q&A segment. So earlier, we asked our participants to actually drop their thoughts, comments, and questions. And now I am more than happy to read them out. So our first candidate. I now have Danvik with me. Hi once again to Davin and Kimberly and Hong. Let me ask you, how are you feeling right now? Danvik.
I'm fine.
You're fine. How about you, Davin?
Great, great. I mean, it's great to be here and also meeting you, Mila.
By the way, let me tell you that yellow suits you well. You're shining like a sun right now.
Oh, thank you. Well, FYI, I'm actually promoting the Jom Test T-shirt as well. So, yay.
Oh, that's really a good thing. You can promote that now.
Oh, okay. Here you go. It comes in 4 colors.
Oh, I would love to try them all.
Oh, sure. Just send me your mailing address and I'll just send them to you.
Thank you so much. And of course, Kimberly and Hong, how is the weather there in Vietnam?
It's actually getting cooler, which is nice. We need it. It's been very hot.
Can we exchange countries right now?
Come on over.
I would love to visit Vietnam one day, and I would be more than happy to spend time with you and just see the things that you've done there in Vietnam personally, up close and personal. So now let's ask you the questions that our participants have written down on the chat box. For Danvik, one of the most important process of translating HIV services or the social acceptability of sexual services in the Philippines is appropriate and effective messaging. With what we've done so far, how did you come up with the brand name Self-Care for HIV self-testing in the Philippines?
Well, it's a good thing in Love Yourself that we have numerous. It's a good thing in Love Yourself that we have numerous volunteers who are helping us in creating campaigns and strategies on how we will promote our services. We have this messaging on how to further take care of yourself, which we call triangle of self-care, which is actually a boosted HIV 101 strategy. More than just the basics of HIV, it's really choosing that way on how for you to take care of yourself further, regardless of your status, whether you're HIV negative or HIV. And for you to know how to take care of yourself, you need to access HIV testing. So what we did with coming up with campaigns is to base that concept to our triangle of self-care messaging. That's why we use the brand name self-care. Because if you access self-care, it's actually daring for you to access the care that you need so that you could share it to other people as means of multiplying joy and and really promoting your overall management of health and wellness. So that's what we did. It's really to use that strategy, that messaging, so that it encompasses that service. It's not just self-testing. It's actually a complete service that you will be linked regardless of whatever your response is.
I like that. I like how holistic the approach that you've done in promoting self testing. More so, it's just really loving yourself. Self care has become a great language in our society today, most especially when we've experienced the pandemic. Now is the time for us to reiterate that self care is actually a manifestation of fully loving ourselves. In our case, it's really health, right?
It is. It's really not just more of self care. It's really empowering other people to take care of themselves. If we empower people to have them ways on how to take care of themselves, and they have that gratitude and that glorified experience, they'll be able to share it to other people. It's really more fun targeting not just the empowerment and taking care of themselves. It's really more fun advocacy if we share that voice to everyone.
I like that because once you take good care of yourselves, you know how to take care of others too. So sharing is caring at the same time. Now, let me ask Davin. Davin, we're now experiencing COVID for more than a year now. How did
Yeah.
this HIV testing services in Southeast Asia, and where do we position HIV self-testing now?
Okay, are you actually referring to the usual self-testing? I mean, HIV testing or the self-testing specifically?
Well, for the first part of the question, now that we are in the pandemic, how did it affect the practices before? The
Oh,
facility based.
yeah, actually, actually, it did actually affected a lot because due to lockdown and many people actually can't even go out, or even cross state. So that actually had a huge challenge in reaching out to people to get themselves tested. So fortunately, this Jom test study actually came in line during the time of COVID. So in that way, we were actually able to tap into those hard reach key population, like to get themselves tested and also to link them to treatment as soon as. So originally the study, right, we actually targeted to just 1 to 2 states, just like the central state. But due to COVID, we like expanded, like, what, let's expand it like throughout the country, the west side and the east side of Malaysia. Doesn't matter, just open to everybody. So in that way, we actually get a really good response, like up to today. I mean, the study is still ongoing. And fortunately, even the response of the key population themselves, they took it uh, really positively, like there wasn't any negative feedback, there wasn't any like some sort of like a fear or some sort. Like you can see up to today, we have about like 50 of them of reactive cases, and 10% has actually reached out to the list of outreach worker directory from our website and went started heart treatment all by themselves. Yeah, so without actually going through consult. So I can say that, this is actually a really good step, especially during this time of COVID situation.
But of course, there are people who are apprehensive about self-testing.
Yes.
How we convince
Yes.
them self-testing is one of the ways we can promote self-care and more so help us achieve HIV-free world by 2030.
I'm sorry, you were breaking down. Could you please repeat that again?
Again,
Sorry.
how can we encourage those who are apprehensive that self-testing is actually an option, another alternative that they can use?
Yes. I mean, because this is actually still new. Like you can say, like what I've told you in my earlier presentation before, it is actually the first pilot study that's actually conducted in Malaysia. So many of them actually has a lot of questions and concerns regarding self-testing, like same as what Denwick has mentioned earlier, that self-testing is actually available online, like in online shopping website, but then it's not actually registered or approved, or it's actually being widely advertised throughout the country. So when we first introduce self-testing to the public, I mean, there was actually a challenges at first, when people actually start asking questions like whether is this true, or whether, you sure that it's not part of a scam, and there's so many questions we actually had to go through at so many levels. But that is why, at the first stage of the study, what we did, and up to now, what we do is that we deliver the test kit all for free. They just come in, participate in the study, and we deliver them all for free, and we actually take in all the charges. So in that way, people actually saw, like I told you, that people also started posting on their test results in social media, which that was a surprise from our end, because we didn't expect that to happen. Especially on Twitter, like they tagging the Malaysian AIDS Council and also the U equals to U page, and from there we actually can see quite a number of posts from the key population themselves, that they are actually happy with taking this HIV self-testing, and also I think it's much more preferable because it's more confidential, and also they can actually do it at the comfort at their home, and they don't have to go through several processes and also face other stigma and discrimination issues.
That is true. I like how you highlighted building the trust among
Yes.
clients. That is a must because you are introducing something new. So you have to build that trust first. And I'm so happy to know that more people have actually trusted self-testing now, especially in your location. Now let us move on to Kim and Hong. Any one of you can answer this question. How do we include counseling in the process of HIV self-testing in cases that a person wants to self-test, and then how do we link them in the cases that we now have where they are newly diagnosed with HIV?
I'll start, Hangang, and then jump in. Okay. Yeah, so, HIV self-testing is really an option. It's an opt-in test, right? And so when people self-test, it's something they've thought about before. And then they are seeking a self-test. So in a sense, that sort of traditional pre-post test counseling is a little bit different for HIV self-testing, and that the individual has already done a lot of contemplation before they've sought a self-test. And so for us, what we think is really important is there's different entry points, right, to self-testing. And that's important because some people will prefer to have an assisted self-test. They'll want help. It's the first time they've done this. And we found this during COVID. There were a lot of new users, right, at self-tests. And so there was about 62% over time of people wanted to have an assisted self-test because it was a totally new experience for them. And in that case, you've got either online or you have a peer or somebody from a community-based organization. They're providing some support, and then if that individual's test is reactive, they get assistance right away with being supported for confirmation testing and then being enrolled in ART in the clinic of their choice. Now, for those that are, who are ordering and who are getting a test kit delivered to them, there's that follow-up process, and some people don't necessarily want to have a follow-up, and that's also their choice and their right. And so, we trust that individuals who have a reactive result, the information is available and it's out there to them, that they will make decisions according to what they need for their own health. And that there's a whole cadre of people who are available to answer questions should they want that. There's also there's online counseling, which can be more anonymous, and also a chat bot for general questions around where to go for confirmation testing or for treatment.
So that's online through a chat box, or just doing it online, most especially now in the middle of the pandemic. Now, Hongan, in cases that they tested positive, how do we link them to community centers?
Yes, so thank you for the question. I think there are two options for the clients. Number one is that one of the things that I would like to share here is that the government of Vietnam is about to revise the current guidelines on HIV testing, include the community testing and self-testing, and they are really taking care of that sort of post-test support. And there will be a statement in the guidelines saying that the distributor will need to really provide very clear information on the post-test linkage, like a hotline or a hotline of the facilities or a hotline of CBOs who can provide support to the clients. That's one option. The other option is that because there are still certain proportion of clients opting for assisted self-testing, that means they have someone to provide support to them. So that person can really play a very critical role in linking the clients to the post-test services that they need. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it did, definitely. Thank you so much, Han and Kimberly, for enlightening us with ways we can implement counseling and linking those who are doing self testing. Now, on to our next question. This is now a question from our participant. Is self testing stipulated in the RA 11166? I think this is for Danvik.
For the information of for those who are not aware of what RA 11166 is, RA 11166 or the Republic Act 11166 is actually the HIV and AIDS Policy Act here in the Philippines. It is actually stipulated because according to Section 29 of the law, the state shall continually review and revise as appropriate the HIV diagnostic algorithm based on current available laboratory technology and evidence. And since we don't have evidence here yet in the Philippines, what we did with self-care is we need to establish that evidence. So what we did is we partnered with the University of the Philippines, Manila, to seek an ethics review approval. And that ethics review approval covers the rollout of the demonstration project. So it means it is ethically approved. And with that approval, we were able to import the test kits from the US, and it is for the specific use of this demonstration project. So that's how we brought the kits here in the Philippines. And there is a provision under the Food and Drug Administration that it can be imported based on research purposes. So that's what we did. And after establishing this evidence now that out of 1,200 who reported the results with a reactivity rate of 7 to 8%, we are now able to present this evidence to the Department of Health so that they will be able to revise the national testing guidelines to include now self-testing and other modalities for the entire country. So actually, this study has paved way for all, not only community-based organizations, but technically all HIV testing facilities in the Philippines to use multiple testing modalities. So it's not only facility-based testing anymore. Other testing modalities, including self-testing, will now be included in that revised HIV testing guidelines. And we hope that it will be rolled out soon because, of course, we are excited to offer these options to our clients to have, their differentiated care approach, whatever works for them, because there's no one stroke for everyone, different strokes for different folks. So whatever option works for them, then they should choose that option so that, we provide more option para they can more manage their health and wellness based on their lifestyle.
I like it. I like how we frame the conversation of testing into a matter of choice because we will always be free to choose. That's part of our humanity. At sabi nga, according to our favorite character from Four Sisters in a Wedding, Teddy Salazar, options, options, options. They do matter because we all have different ways in dealing with a particular situation. And now you can choose facility-based, self-testing, and for sure, as we are evolving the studies and the rollouts of different ways, we will have more options in the future.
I agree. Actually, this self-testing, what we have rolled out is actually unassisted self-testing. There's actually assisted self-testing in the Philippines already, which we call community-based screening or CBS. So it's really adding more options and presenting more evidence to the government so that they will be able to revise the guidelines para we can offer all of these options for all of our communities here in the Philippines.
I like it. It's like we are also speaking the language of diversity. So we are catering to different needs, different contexts, different people, and different choices. On to our next question. Yes, this is fun. This is fun. Just merely knowing the answers from our panelists right now. I am enjoying it because I am learning. As an advocate, it's very important for me to learn and update myself, educate myself on how we have evolved as a community of people who value an HIV-free world. And now this is our next. Yes. So, Danvik, you've met with our other panelists. Kim, you have Denver, and of course Honan. Yeah. As you interact with them, do you share best practices whenever you meet?
Yes, that's very important. That's why I actually met Kim once, I think in Thailand or in Geneva also. I met Davin in Malaysia when we conducted the same forum, IS Educational Forum, when we did it in 2018. And I actually just met Hong virtually, but I hope to meet you soon. But it's really an opportunity for us to network and share the best practices of each and every country. Because it's very important to share it in those avenues so that we could learn from each other and base our experience and adapt it to the local setting. Because of course, if there is a best practice abroad and we need to adapt it to the local setting, sometimes it might not work, sometimes it works. So we need, to hear those best practices and, to adjust it to the local setting. So I'm very grateful for those experiences. Conversations with them.
Thank you so much, Danvik. And I also hope to learn more from our friends from Malaysia and Vietnam. This is such a good space for us to interact. On to our next question. If you self-tested and turned out to be positive, will you disclose to anyone or to a medical doctor? What is the purpose then? We knew that there is a stigma in this disease. An individual who tested positive may take it negatively or positively. If he or she took it negatively, may result to transmitting the disease to others as form of revenge. What if he or she took it positively, then he or she can be an advocate? What is your reaction to this? So let me hear from Davin. Davin first.
Wow, that was a really long question.
It is.
I mean, I was actually speculating with the word revenge. Like that's wow. I mean, okay, so talking about the reaction, and I mean, especially reactive cases, right? Just from my personal experience through the Jom Test program, I've only received like WhatsApp messages and only 1 or 2 calls from participants when they were actually tested reactive, because they just the first thing they ask is where can I go for testing? Where can I go for complementary? That's it, as simple as that. Yeah. Then out of many of those who are tested reactive, only one of them who I've encountered who needed the support, like the emotional support, which was like around 2 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, so I had to sit with the call with him, talk over like nearly 2 hours. And then after that, at the end of the day, he actually take it positively, because most of them, they don't even know the message of getting themselves reactive. Reactive meaning it doesn't mean 100% that they're actually positive for HIV. That's when they have to go for complementary testing to see whether they are really positive or actually negative. But I did also, this is where they can explore more to learn more about how is it like, like if you were to test it negative or positive. If you tested positive, it's not the end of the world, and that's what many actually fail to actually get that information. And I don't think so. You're actually getting those kind of information through the media as well. So that actually finds it like a challenging for us, to actually consult one by one and bringing out those messages.
Thank you so
I
much.
hope I answered your question though.
Yes, it's very important for us to highlight these because these are valid concerns from our audience right now that they feel like testing is also a part of testing is also having that ability to be able to process whatever results they may be. And we've been used to going through this with counseling, a person present. But with self-testing, this is something that they want to just really know of because it's something new, we are evolving, and we need to find ways so that we can address options for our clients. Kim and Hongan, let me start with Hongan first. What are your thoughts about this question?
It's a great question, actually, and I would think that we may want to look at a range of emotions here and feelings here. I think what's really important for the client at that time, I think it would be difficult to say whether it's negative or positive feeling or negative or positive reaction because the clients will need time. From my sort of real practical implementation experience, it doesn't count much in terms of what you say to the client at that particular. You just give them time to absorb and to accept the fact and just soothe them, provide them with the mental support that they need at that very difficult time. And then maybe after 1 day or 2 days when they really calm down and sort of like, then that's the time when you may talk more and provide them with more information on the service linkages. I know that same-day AR critical, but for some clients it's possible, but for some others it may not be that feasible. So really, I think there's no feelings or emotion that is negative. It's just the natural emotions that the clients will have to go through. And if I am about to test myself and turn out positive, honestly, I'm gonna do like immediately.
Thank you so
Just
much.
for sharing. Yeah.
How about you, Kim?
I think Hong Yang said everything perfectly. Just maybe one thing to add, and I think that Danvik said this in the very beginning, but it's really sort of, it's also just around the orientation and how we are talking about living with HIV, just more of that HIV status neutral approach that HIV positive or negative, there is a bright future ahead and all of these different services available to support you. So that kind of framing that matters. It's really important. Thanks, and over.
Thank you so much. So, well, the future is always bright, most especially that we have advocates like Kim, Hongan, Davin, and Danvik. Thank you so much for accommodating the questions of our audience. Thank you for enlightening us with the information and situation in your respective countries, particularly Vietnam, Malaysia, and the Philippines. Magandang hapon, Danvik. At mula sa Pilipinas, pagmamahal sa inyo, Kim, Hongan, and Davin. And that's it for our fourth session here in You Matter Symposium. I think it has been a fantastic experience for everyone. In my case, I think the most important learnings that I have had so far is one, we are constantly evolving. I am very appreciative of the data-driven and scientific research that we have been conducting through the years in order to address the HIV/AIDS epidemic. I think it's very important that we constantly engage in this conversation so that we know where we presently stand and how we can move forward. Most especially right now, we are aiming for the 2030 mark that HIV pandemic, that the AIDS pandemic will already end. And it starts with this conversation. It starts with the evolution of ways that we can address the situation. Right now, we are experiencing the pandemic and more evolutions have come in. There's now self-testing, which I think has addressed the situation right now. So that's for me. That's what I've learned. And if you have so many learnings from you, I encourage you to tweet it, to post it on your Facebook account so that more and more people could learn about how we can solve this epidemic. The You Matter Symposium isn't over yet as we are still about to announce some things. So without further ado, may I call back Dr. Nitaya Panupak for her concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Mela, and thank you for all the speakers for this session and for the whole symposium. I have learned a lot. It has been so inspiring, especially for the HIV self-testing session just now. I want to just copy everything that you already done, just implement it in Thailand right away. Such a wonderful experience to learn from all of you. I enjoyed it a lot, and I hope that all the audience here for 2 days will also enjoy that learning experience. I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of the IAS as well as Love Yourself to thank all the audience, thank you for all the questions and discussion, and thank all the speakers. And also would like to thank WIF Healthcare, Merck Sharp and Dome, Gilead Sciences, and the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation for making this virtual symposium possible. And I hope that all of you, being the audience, being the speaker, have received new ideas and solutions to face challenges at work, also getting new ideas of how to implement the latest science, to translate the science into implementation at your country levels, as well as have the opportunities to network with each other like this. You know, the question that Mela asked all of you, whether you meet and then you discuss this from time to time. I think that's certainly the catalytic actions that have made us to today. And also I believe that you have learn the strategies on how to improve not only practices but policies in your own setting as well. And I would like to end by saying and giving my sincere thank you to all of you again. And now handing back to Mela.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nitaya. Definitely, I have to agree with you that one of the things that we can learn from having symposiums like this is one, knowing the best practices that we implement in every country. More so, we begin to meet people of different backgrounds, of different cultures, and that's how we learn. I'm just so happy to have gained 3 new friends in the humanity of Davin, Hongan, and Kim. I've known Dr. Nitaya like months ago, and I'm so happy to be her friend right now. I'm still interested to know of your skincare routine. We'll have to talk about that. But for now, there's so much learning from the 2-day symposium that we've had. For day 1, we have 2 sessions talking about upscaling of PrEP and PEP interventions and understanding and unity against HIV. Now, on the second day, we have discussed how treatment can make our PLHIV friends live healthier and how we can leverage HIV self-testing to curb the epidemic. And now for our final announcement and to close this 2-day event, I'll call in once again the founder and executive director of Love Yourself Incorporated, the beautiful and dashing Ronvin Pagtakhan.
Thank you again, Miss Mela. Mabuhay, everyone. I hope everyone's great, and I hope you learned a lot from today. And as we end our 2-day symposium, allow me to thank the people who have contributed to the success of this event. I send my special thanks to the resource speakers and leaders for sharing their expertise and insights. We feel more equipped and inspired to continue work that we do in our respective communities aimed at delivering a client-centric approach to our HIV response. This virtual gathering won't be complete without our moderators, Mela and Iskander, who made the discourse flow smoothly. I'd also like to acknowledge the tireless team of Love Yourself volunteers who ran this event hitch-free, specifically the group of Danvik, Francis, and Raybird. Thank you so much. You have never failed to amaze me with every project you pull off. Lastly, I want to thank Lastly, I want to end by thanking the International AIDS Society for this successful collaboration. This served as an excellent avenue for all of us to learn new things and gain perspective from each other's experiences. I look forward to partnering with you in future projects and initiatives. I am optimistic that we haven't seen the last of each other. After all, we share the same fight and vision. Know that we are here, ready and willing to work aside you to amplify voices that educate, advocate, and call for action. The most important takeaway we want everyone to bear in this event is how, in more ways than one, you matter. This is what we should keep in mind as well as we work and relate with our clients. You matter. You are the center of what we do. You inspire us to keep going and make things better. Now, before you leave, we would like to see how you feel about the day and overall the symposium by asking you to participate in a poll. We hope that you have enjoyed the symposium and that the session from today and yesterday have been helpful and interesting to you and contributed to your personal professional development. Okay, we're still waiting for a few of our friends to click their answer to the poll. So we have 90% yes and 78% definitely. So thank you so much, and a big thank you to all of you, our Love Yourself team, our IAS Educational Fund team, all the volunteers, all the advocates who have joined us. Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay and have a great day. Thank you, Mela.
Maraming salamat, Vin, and to everyone who has participated and contributed to the success of our symposium. Mabuhay kayong lahat. Long live our fight for HIV and AIDS. Thank you, IAS. Thank you, Love Yourself, for trusting me to host the 3 sessions of You Matter, inspiring a client-centered HIV response in the Philippines and Southeast Asia. To all the participants, keep on learning and continue helping your respective communities as we all march towards ending AIDS by 2030. Remember that in this fight, you matter. This has been Miss Mela Habijan, your Miss Trans Global 2020. Enjoy the rest of the day. Until next time, everyone. Bye. Peace out. I'm now signing out.